interest of time, let's move on. Our final subject today will be the Tafsir of Muhammad Tahir ibn Aashoor. He was a scholar of the 20th century, the Common Era. He was born in 1879 and he died in 1973. And he was probably the most famous, the foremost Tunisian scholar of the 20th century. He was the rector of al-Zaytuna University, and he had the title of Sheikh al-Islam, which granted him official recognition as the leading Islamic authority in Tunisia. And his tafsir was known as al-TaÍrêr or al-tanwêr. And he also wrote al-Maqasid al-Sharia, which is a thematic analysis of the objectives of Islamic legislation. And he brought that outlook to bear on his tafsir as well. And you find that he really, it's his tafsir is a sort of a refinement of previous tafsirs. He deals with many difficult issues and brings them to some very reasonable conclusion. The questions. I found in trying to read him that sometimes his discussion of grammatical issues is so complex that I can't follow it. I'm not a native speaker, but I did study grammar at college level for 4 years in the Arabic language, and his discussion leaves me in the dust. Let's look at verses 67 and 68 from Surah al-Anfal. I'll just read the English. It's not for any prophet to have captives until he has made slaughter of Allah's enemies in the land. It's one of the حَتَّى يُثْخِنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. There's various interpretations of what that means. You desire the lure of this world, and Allah desires for you the hereafter, and Allah is mighty, wise. This is Fakhr's translation. Had it not been for an ordinance of Allah which had gone before, an awful doom would have come upon you on account of what you took. Ibn Aashoor said, verse 67, this is a new sentence that is consistent in theme with the previous passage, which deals with the whole issue of when it's permissible for the Muslims to retreat from an enemy that's larger than them in numbers. Originally it was 10 to 1. They couldn't retreat unless the odds were more than 10 to 1. And then Allah lightened it and made it 2 to 1. So the passage we're speaking about is consistent in theme with that passage, whether it was revealed right after it or its revelation was delayed. In other words, he's not sure. Its placement here is either due to its revelation right after the previous passage or due to special instructions in that regard. And instructions from Allah by way of Jibreel. Tawqif khas. The relationship is that both mention various rules regarding jihad. The greatest jihad that had occurred was the Battle of Badr. This whole surah of al-Anfal is about the Battle of Badr. Without a doubt, this verse was revealed after the matter of taking ransom for the prisoners of Badr arose, and it refers to it. In my opinion, this was legislation for the future, which Allah delayed out of kindness for the Muslims who had won victory at Badr. By delaying it, He honored them for that clear victory and fulfilled their needs in their state of deprivation. It was revealed to clarify the more appropriate policy that should have been taken regarding what occurred in the matter of the prisoners from the Battle of Badr. As Muslim reported on the authority of Ibn Abbas and Tirmidhi reported on the authority of Ibn Masud, the issue in brief is that the Muslims took all these prisoners, including the leaders of the mushriks. And the mushriks asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to allow themselves to ransom themselves on the condition that they would never fight against him again. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then he asked the Muslims, what do you think about these prisoners? Abu Bakr said, Messenger of Allah, they are our cousins and relatives. I think you should take ransom from them. It will be a source of strength for us against the kuffar, and it is possible that Allah may guide them to Islam. Now notice that Abu Bakr, his whole reasoning is verses. He points out two issues that are of benefit to Islam. One is that it will make the Muslims stronger in order to be able to wage jihad. The other is that these people might accept Islam. Then the Prophet ﷺ asked Umar, he said, "What do you think, Ibn al-Khattab?" He said, "No, by Allah, Messenger of Allah, I do not agree with Abu Bakr. I think you should hand them over to us so that we can cut off their heads. Hand Aqil over to Ali," in other words, his brother, "to cut off his head, and hand over so-and-so to me," in other words, my relative, to me, so that I cut his head off. For these people are the leaders and the nobility of the disbelievers. So Rasulullah ﷺ, he ended up accepting Abu Bakr's opinion, and he took ransom for them. And then Allah revealed these two verses. Ibn Aashoor, he said, Rasulullah ﷺ, he chose Abu Bakr's opinion because it was consistent with ease and mercy toward the Muslims, since they were in need of wealth. And whenever Allah's Messenger ﷺ had a choice between two matters, he chose that which was easiest as long as it was not sinful. It has been reported that the majority inclined to the opinion of Abu Bakr, and it was of benefit to the Muslims since they were in need of wealth. When Allah's Messenger consulted those whom he consulted, it makes it clear that Allah had not revealed anything to him about that, and that Allah had assigned him the responsibility of making ijtihad on the matter. He decided to consult the people, and then chose one of the two opinions by his ijtihad. The ijtihad was correct in the sense that some of them accepted Islam at that time, such as Suhail ibn Baydah, and some of them accepted Islam later, such as al-Abbas and others. Rasulullah ﷺ was unaware, only Allah knew, that some of them were concealing the secret intention to prepare for further warfare against the Muslims after returning to their people. And in fact, some of them did come back in the army that came to the Battle of Uhud. They may even have been intending to catch up to the retreating Mushrik army at some nearby location and get them to come back for another battle, turning the Muslim victory into defeat, as they did at Uhud. Because of this, the verse was revealed, it's not befitting for a prophet that he should take prisoners until the force of the disbelievers has been crushed in the land. Ibn al-Arabi in Aradat al-Ahwadi, he said that Ubaidah al-Salmani reported from Ali that Jibril came to Rasulullah ﷺ after the Battle of Badr and presented him with a choice of cutting off the heads of the prisoners or of taking ransom for them. And then what would happen if they took the ransom is that an equal number of Muslims would be killed in the battle the next year. Rasulullah ﷺ informed the Sahaba of those choices, and the majority chose ransom and equal number of deaths. I didn't have the time to check, what the authenticity is of that narration. Anyway, he goes on to say, the meaning of the verse is that when a prophet fights, the purpose for doing so is entirely single objective, to give victory to the religion and repel its enemies. His fighting is not for a kingdom or political power. When the number of followers of the religion is small, killing prisoners is a way of reducing the number of the enemy who will fight against the religion. Then when the religion spreads and the number of its adherents increases, ransom becomes a viable option for the material benefit it brings to its adherents, to the adherents of the religion, and the end of the possibility of the enemy returning to a position of strength. In other words, once religion spreads, the enemy no longer, the number of followers of Islam becomes many, then the enemy, their strength fades, and they don't pose a threat anymore. This is the explanation for the condition attached to the rule by saying it is not befitting for a prophet, etc., etc. The statement is addressed to the Muslims who gave the opinion to take ransom. It's not addressed to the Prophet ﷺ, for he only did what Allah ordered him to do, that is, consult his companions, as Allah said, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, verse 109 of Ali Imran, especially in light of what Tirmidhi reported, what we just said. Jibril conveyed to the Prophet ﷺ that he should consult his companions. This is indicated by his statement, you desire the passing goods of this world. for those who wanted the passing goods of the world were those who suggested that ransom be taken. And he makes it clear later that Abu Bakr wasn't intended there. Rasulullah ﷺ had no portion of that ransom. The indefinite use of the word prophet in "it is not befitting for a prophet" is an indication that this was the rule in the wars fought by the prophets of the children of Israel in the past. And he refers to a passage in Deuteronomy that explicitly states that. Negative statements of this type in the Qur'an can mean prohibition, such as, "and it is not for you to cause annoyance to the Messenger of Allah," from Surah Al-Ahzab, or it can mean it's not befitting, as it does here. For this statement comes as a preface to the reprimand, so it becomes incumbent that it means what is not appropriate of opinion and policy. The negation in "it is not befitting for a prophet that he should take prisoners" is with regard to their remaining as prisoners, or the remaining of their substitute, which is the ransom. There's a number of interesting points here, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to get down to what I found particularly interesting here, and it's different. Compare his treatment of this whole issue with al-Raazee. Raazee has a very confused interpretation of the issue. He says that when there's a mention of punishment, that it could mean punishment in the hereafter, or it could mean punishment in this life. And then he goes on to indicate why he believes that it's punishment in this life. He says, this punishment is a worldly punishment. That is because the punishment of the hereafter is only caused by going against a law already in effect, and there had been no previous legislation that prohibited them from taking ransom. How could there have been when they were given a choice and were consulted on the matter? This is a type of punishment. He's talking about this worldly punishment. It's in the sense of a catastrophic consequence, not divine retribution. This is a type of punishment that is linked to acts by the links of cause and effect. It's not punishment in the sense of incurring Allah's anger, for that is not incurred except by major disobedience. What is meant by punishment here is that the ransomed prisoners included leaders of the mushriks who had escaped execution and slavery, and would be carrying in their breasts resentment and rancor. It would be normal to expect such persons to be activists, exhorting their people to seek revenge for their dead and trying to recover their wealth. If they had done so, the consequences for the Muslims would have been grave. However, Allah saved the believers from that by diverting the mushriks from seeking revenge against His beloved. Now, he seems to mean, he's talking about in the context of them catching up with the army and then coming straight back and fighting the Muslims. However, that does have a bit of a problem because, they took the prisoners back with them to Medina and the ransoming took place from there. So maybe I'm misunderstanding him. Anyway, he said, if these ransom leaders had done that, then the consequences for the Muslims would have been grave. However, Allah saved the believers from that by diverting the mushriks from seeking revenge against His beloved, the Prophet ﷺ, and He made those people busy with matters that preoccupied them from returning to fight the Muslims. At least for a year and a half, they were busy with other things. And that diversion of them was a primordial decree from Allah, exalted, meaning it was a matter of qadr, that Allah had already decreed it in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. We've run out of time, and there's a lot of other points that I would have liked to have brought out from Ibn Aashoor's treatment, but that's what we have time for. And so, till next time, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.